Welcome, everybody, back to technically the first episode of Fade to Obsidian, because pilot episodes don't really count. I don't know. I am Skipper.
Every ship needs a pilot.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Ships, you're right. The pilot episode does count, so this is episode
Yeah.
2.
The most important.
The most important. And
One might say.
feel like as the blue in the group, I should have known that. So that is my bad. I will make it up later to everybody. But yeah, I am Skipper, joined as always by Crescent.
I'm Crescent.
And this week we have a
And
very
weird-
special guest of Chester. Crescent and I are just going to talk over each other the whole time.
Yes, 100%.
Maybe I'll talk a little bit.
Yeah. Welcome, Chester. Do you want to
Hello.
explain why you're called Chester?
Sure. Yeah. So in the den. So I'm also from the Howlers Den, like Crescent and Skipper, and we have our little questionnaire that I filled out to get my Howler name, which I never had a Howler name before until that, so that was exciting. And one of the questions was something about food, and so like my favorite food is mashed potatoes and hot Cheetos. Not together, but I could live off of just those two things. So it was the hot Cheetos thing that got brought up and then turned into Chester because Chester Cheeto. And I'm glad it wasn't Cheeto because somebody suggested Cheeto. So I like Chester.
Yeah, I feel like I would not want to be Cheeto, but Chester's a good
didn't.
one.
Yeah.
That
I
is-
like it.
I can't remember. I may have been involved in that.
Were you? Because, see,
I remember.
I entered in like December, so I wasn't with the OGs, but it was pre-Bacchno, so a while. But yeah, I don't remember. Probably were.
Yeah, there's a very good chance that I was.
There you go. And how did you find Red Rising?
So it's one of those books I feel like it's just infamous, like on the book internet space, like BookTube, Book Twitter, and I was really active on those, so I had always heard of it. And it was always on my TBR, and then finally, I think in 2021 is when I barely read Red Rising. And I don't even remember who I first saw it from. I just knew about it. Like, I don't know. And so I gave it a shot. I knew from the very beginning that it was going to be one of those books where you're just like, this is it. Like, this is a moment. I'm not going to read something this good again for a while. So I just enjoyed it. My first read. I just read all 3 in a row, like the trilogy. And then I waited until a whole year to read Iron Gold because they're all out when I read them. And I read Iron Gold, and I still haven't read Dark Age.
You're waiting to go through the trauma of it.
I'm waiting, and the den's been scaring me.
Yeah, but at least you have an emotional support group through it.
True, I didn't have that for the trilogy. It was just me by myself. I didn't know anybody that had read them. But it was also kind of special like that. Just have it by myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, until the emotional support falls down during Dark Age, because everybody's ruined.
Yes. Yes.
That's true.
Yeah.
There's like no actual support. I feel like everybody is really devastated. So
Yeah, it's a group therapy where there's no therapist. That's the problem. Normally there's at least one person who's stable. No, nobody's stable. That's awesome.
yeah, I'm scared.
It'll be fine. You'll be fine. We have brought you on today for the very special reason of talking. So it's chapters 1 to 13, which is Eo and Darrow this week. So take us through just your first opening of anything in chapters 1 to 13. You can focus on them. You can focus not on them. What are we feeling in those chapters?
Okay. So I guess we'll just stick to Darrow and Eo for now. I feel like Eo plays a vital part, obviously, in the beginning, and getting to know that relationship, sticking to the ship part of the podcast, I guess. it's interesting to see like Pierce Brown describe them, and then usually when you're introduced to a character, are we saying spoilers? Hold on, are we doing spoilers?
You can't go past chapter 11. I might have said 1 to 13 there, but it's 11.
You said 1 to 13 a couple times, but it's chapters 1 to 11.
1 to 11. So right before the carving, which you can say because chapter 12 is called the carving. So if you've gotten to the end of chapter 11, I assume you've seen the next one. But yeah,
I don't even think you have to turn the page to see it.
No, I think they're side by side.
Fair.
Oh no, you do. You do have to turn the page.
Okay, I'll spoil a little.
Yeah. So,
according to Hurricane, you can spoil a little bit.
Spoil.
Little. Okay. Well, I feel like in books, like if an author kills off a character early, you don't care because you didn't have enough time with them. But I feel like he wrote their relationship to where when we see what happens to Eo, I was actually like hurt by it, and that was something I feel like a lot of authors could pull off. And I feel like Eo, without her doing what she did, Darrow could have never moved on, like, to the carving.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think for sure it doesn't matter where you stand on it. She's definitely the catalyst for the whole thing. It's, though, highly debated, I would say, on whether or not people actually like Eo. It's one of the most debated characters.
Yeah.
We're not quite evenly split on pro and anti-Eo Darrow, but we are almost evenly split pro and everything else. We have, it's 53% of our survey respondents are pro Eo Darrow. 26.66% are anti Eo and Darrow, and then 20% of them are neutral.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, we did send out a survey of just Red Rising and the ships in there, which there will be one coming out for Golden Sun, so make sure you're following us on social media for it. It's pretty funny, some of the comments on it. So
yeah, there's a lot that are...
Do you want to hear, Chester, pro, anti, or else Crescent's going to be mad at me for switching between pro and against. Pro, anti, or a neutral one, because there's some pretty funny ones, and then we can discuss our feelings towards them.
I want to hear a pro and an anti, but a pro first, just to, give me that first.
Okay, so the first one I have here on the list is they were young kids. What did they really know about anything? But Eo dreamt of something more. It's a pretty good one. It's a cute...
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. I mean, and then the first on the anti-list is, I thought it was sweet at first, then tragic. I was shocked that Eo would sacrifice herself and force Darrow to be the hero of the story when all he wanted was to live a normal red life. There's a few in here that got into, I would say, the manipulation of it. Mm-hmm. Do you feel that Eo manipulated Darrow, or just that she was doing her own thing and it came out as it is?
Yeah, I feel like she had a plan, but I don't think it was manipulation, because I feel like Darrow ultimately did have the choice. Like, something I caught on to, especially during this reread, doing the Red Rising read along with the Den, was, so Darrow knew that if he were to get her and bury her, that he knew that the repercussions of that was going to be him going to his own death. And I feel like it's almost the same choice Eo made. She chose that, and then Eo chose that. And so, but some people see that like as a flaw for Eo, but it's the same thing with Darrow. And that was his choice. And then even when he, finds out about the carving, I feel like he still did choose, because he had that rage. And again, I see that it was because of Eo, and she set up like this mastermind plan. So I see it. I don't see it maliciously.
Yeah, it's definitely mixed there. I'll throw a neutral one in there that's my personal favorite of the whole thing, which is somewhat toxic, but still adorable.
It's accurate.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think my favorite neutral is just Eo got them crazy eyes.
We're going to have to revisit whoever wrote Eo got them crazy eyes gave the whole time these short one answer along the lines of that I feel like at the end, once it's no longer spoilers and we can talk Mustang and Cassius and all of those, we'll have to revisit. Because whoever that is, you're out there somewhere. Hilarious.
I am very convinced that it could be Hydro.
Oh. I was thinking Snowflake. This is a game we're going to play in the den, but we're not going to do it maliciously. Nobody's out for blood. But if you hear a quote that you're like, that is clearly this person, try and tag them in. See if you were correct.
Yeah.
But there is, I will say, there was, I think, 32 respondents. They're not all in the den because we did put it out on a few other Howler social medias. So, all right, here, let me see. Oh, what's your feeling on the idolization of Eo? Like, a lot of people, I would say, think that Darrow was too in love with Eo versus what she was with him. Thoughts, feelings?
Yeah. I think he was, like, that's just how Reds are. Like, he's a product of his family and the clan. Mm-hmm. And Lycos, like, I feel like that's just their way, kind of. I don't know. I think it makes sense, his feelings. Like, that's just part of who he is. That he would feel that intensely. And I feel like we see that, too, like, going forward. He's an emotional boy.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, he gets in his feels pretty easy.
Yeah.
I like that. He's an emotional boy. Yep. I'm trying to read through some of these other ones that are pretty funny. There's a whole bunch that I think focus in on them being teenagers, but then a whole discussion is also that Neryl is 35, 35. And so old. He's so old and so tired. But there's a lot, like, do we think that a 16-year-old would still act in our... I don't think so. Like, I don't think a 16-year-old in this world is acting in the same mindset the 16-year-olds in our world are. Because they're... In the same way, it's like you look at us versus the Middle Ages. I don't know. Thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I agree with that. There'd be quite a difference in maturity between a 16-year-old from now and a 16-year-old from Red Rising, because they're so, like, they have to grow up so early.
Yeah.
Like, you're on a drill crew or working the Webery from 13. You start your family at, between 14 and 16. So
They're very live fast, die young.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like they have to mature faster. That's, their 16 is like our 26. I don't know.
Yeah, or 40. If Neryl's old for 35, and let's say the average age right now is 80, it's probably higher than that, but I would say, like, 16 is almost your 40, like 30s and 40s. Mm-hmm. But I
think, too, like, Darrow's father, he died at 25, I think.
Yeah.
Too. It's so young.
Yeah. Well, talking about Neryl, what do you think of Neryl? I'm not going to be able to say this properly because their names are too similar. Neryl and Darrow's relationship. Like that, I guess both family and they have a working relationship.
Yeah, I was hoping that you'd bring up their relationship as well, because I don't think I ever paid as much attention to it as they did this time. But I just feel like he also kind of had a hand in it too, like the plan.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, when he told Darrow, say hello to them and veil for me, he knew he was up to something. Is he also a manipulator then?
Yeah. Well, and there is someone in the den this week had an ongoing theory that Neryl is not as drunk as he seems. Or else
I
he'd
think
be
that was Salem.
Oh,
Yeah, I think it was Salem. You're right. Because how else does he then continue to be the head talk as well as a good agent for Sons of Ares that nobody knew he was?
that's a good point.
Yeah, I like that theory. That, who knows? Who knows what he was cooking up?
He's just really good at acting drunk.
Yeah. Which,
Yeah, I feel like watching everybody in Lycos wouldn't be hard to pick up on how to act like drunk, because they
Yeah, very
drink a
true.
lot.
yes.
Yeah, we as well as a dancing people, we are a drunken people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And speaking of drunken people, what is everybody drinking this week?
I don't know if I told Chester to bring alcohol. Did you bring? It's okay if you
Did I?
Oh, okay.
I figured.
Yeah.
You know what's up.
Yeah.
I got it. Well, I know y'all had like what, scotch?
Mm-hmm.
Not me. I'm not a scotch girl.
It's all
I have
good.
some wine in my little goblet.
I like it.
Nice.
That I brought to the table.
Nice. I am doing not scotch because I thought it was mean if we were going to sit here and drink really expensive scotch and then talk about how like poor the reds are. So Crescent and I already had the discussion about what is swill, which he can explain to you in a second, but basically I figured it was moonshine. So this is not moonshine. This is actually high-end Canadian rye, but in my world, that's basically moonshine. So it's Forty Creek Canadian Whisky, which is just down the road from me. So I figured that is the equivalent of it's close to home. They make that, so it's a giant bottle too. I clearly stole it off my brother-in-law.
Yeah. And for the Irish heritage of the red people, I'm drinking Jameson Irish Whisky.
Yeah, Jameson. I have a bottle of that. That was my other option, but I was like, it's 1:30 p.m. Let me glass of wine. It's okay.
Yeah, you're being the classier of us, but
Yeah.
it's fine. I'm excited when we start doing a whole bunch of these back to back, and by the end, Crescent and I are
gonna
just
be
done.
absolutely sloshed.
Let me tell you my opinions on whoever. Yeah, it'll be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, swill. They talk about being distilled from the fungus Grendel. So it is essentially just Martian moonshine. And it sounds awful.
Yeah. Desperate
Really does.
times comes for desperate measures. When everything is out of necessity, you gotta come up with something.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so we talked Neryl, and then the other relationship that people brought up, which would be, I don't know, similar but different than Neryl, would be Dancer. So we have the introduction of Dancer, and of course we can't go too deep, but any thoughts or feelings on Dancer and Darrow?
Yeah, there's not much there, but then we have Uncle Nero when he says, "Say hi to Dancer for me." So there's that connection. I don't have like too big of an opinion on Dancer, but I mean he's just a guide for Darrow there at the beginning. Kind of like the only familiarity, just because Nero his name. So
Yeah.
thing. What do y'all think?
Well, someone brought up of he is a red and he's an older red, so he would be considered an elder, and probably the first elder that Darrow meets that's kind. Like, we don't really see the kind elders in the mines. And so giving that hand, and I don't know whether or not, it'd be interesting whether or not Darrow is trusting him because he has no other choice, because he's just gone through this traumatic thing, or if it's like, oh, this is the first kind person, right? Like, there's so many different why Darrow just kind of, he doesn't quite accept, but is pretty go with the flow when he's, you know, taken out of the ground.
Yeah, I think part of the reason why Darrow kind of takes to Dancer a little bit is when they're doing the Scythe and Lamb game, he talks about how Dancer kind of has this menace under the surface, and I think that he might feel similar, like kind of a kindred spirit, and so that probably helps, I think. And then with Dancer not pushing Darrow into anything, he is guiding more than forcing.
Almost reluctantly, like knowing what he's pushing him to, I feel like.
Yeah, that's fair. Because like obviously he's like, okay, this kid is our good chance, and you know, I'm maybe just sending him to die.
But then he did say, Uncle Nero was holding out. He didn't tell him about Darrow for a while until then, which I caught on to, which is interesting too. Like, almost like Uncle Nero wanted to save him from that. Gonna offer him up.
Yeah.
Like,
which is a very interesting then play on Darrow and Neryl's relationship of clearly that protection is still there of, you know, this is whether or not it's nephew or son kind of, because he did end up having to raise him and all of that. But there's definitely that, like, I don't want to tell you that I have this person until I need to. Which is interesting. I will say I'm wearing my Sons of Ares Rise shirt, which is from the first Kickstarter, I think in 2016. I was trying to look it up, but that was my contribution to today. Was we'll talk about the Sons of Ares just a little bit. I can wear my shirt. And
I've got my Helldivers Union,
which
is figured that one was appropriate.
Very.
I love it. I love y'all shirts. I don't have a Red Rising shirt. I'm gonna get one, so I brought several.
I like it.
Contributions.
I like it. Fair. That's awesome. Yeah.
It hasn't fit in though. We haven't got there yet.
No.
Yeah, okay. you have to cover them with a
spoilers.
Sheet that says spoiler.
Wait, let me.
Not yet.
Yeah. Next, almost next week. Hold on through.
Yeah, two episodes from now.
I'm gonna. This was Hurricane yesterday on voice chat. Let's see if I can make it work.
You're allowed to spoil just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Yeah, we'll just. He's coming. We know he's coming.
No Red Rising. They've heard of him.
That's it. That's the hard thing. I think we can say names, I feel like, because for the most part,
names aren't spoilers.
If you're this deep that you're listening to us, I doubt you've actually stuck to chapters 1 to 11. But it'd be one thing if we were on about, you know, Iron Gold, but I feel like the first 3 even are safe. But we won't. We will stick to the plan. I just realized we didn't ask the biggest question for this podcast. We are called Fade to Obsidian. What are our thoughts? Hold on, the reason I'm bringing this up is because I have a clip of it as well that we do get our first Fade to Obsidian moment. and this came out of the Howlers Den yesterday. While we were discussing it, that we get two different opinions. One of someone who did not realize there was even a sex scene there, and then Crescent comes in at the end to. So hold on.
I was like, oh, they had a philosophical chat under the stars. How cool! And just kept going.
Let's be real here. They were 16. They awkwardly groped in the grass.
Okay, so
Fair enough.
Yeah. When you read that scene for the first time, thoughts, opinions, it does not have to be whether or not they're awkwardly groping, but did you realize what make love meant? Where it was going?
Yeah. So I did. But what's interesting to me, I see that as the 16-year-old, awkwardly groping. But as we kind of just touched upon, they're not our 16-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
They're older. And so I was annotating, and I marked that. It got a pink tab
Nice.
for love, relationship. So it's the exact, I'll tell you the whole sex scene. This is it. It's one line. And I drink the sounds, the smells, the sight, as my wife and I make love in a bed of grass beneath a roof of stars. That's it. Fade to obsidian.
Yeah.
To fading to obsidian. But it's more poetic, the way Darrow has it in his mind. I feel like it's more than just an awkward groping, but I don't know. I'm also a romantic, I guess. Reading in too much.
Yeah.
I mean, it could also just be Darrow being an unreliable narrator again.
Ooh. I was gonna say, guys always think they're.
Everyone thinks they're suave when they're 16.
That's funny.
That scene is what made me continue reading the book. Not necessarily because it's fade to black, nothing happened. But for me, it was Eo finding the vent and then being like, hey, I'm gonna take my husband up here, because that is something me personally I would do. I'd go, where does that go? Investigate myself, and then go, I'm gonna bring someone with me if it's really cool. So it was that kind of, and then you get that world of oh, the world is bigger than just us in these minds. So that was my huge moment of continuing to read the series, was not the fade to obsidian part of it, but just the them going into the garden.
I don't know. It sounds to me like Skipper's just into the one-liners.
One and done. You will not find me in the erotica section. It's fine. I want the one and dones.
So I guess that's a good lead-in to Hurricane's question that she put forward in the den yesterday. What in the first 11 chapters, I guess, if any, was the moment that kind of really hooked you and continued to make you want to read the book or continue with the book?
Right. I like the strong beginning, a strong opener. This is one of the strongest that I've ever read. Oh, when I would have lived in peace, but my enemies brought me war. It's just so iconic to me. It's in my brain, and I knew, that was the moment I knew I was.
So you were not even chapter one. You were the first. Nice.
That's the prologue.
Nice.
That's all it took. That's literally all it took for me, and I was in it, because I feel like at the beginning with the Helldivers and quadrilles, I like fantasy. I like reading that kind of stuff, but I feel like it could get lost if it's not interesting to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of like an out there scene too. You're like, well, what is all this? What are they even doing? And it took me a couple of reads to actually understand what's going on there. But even from that prologue, and that the way it was described was still interesting. And then I was just hooked all the way, I think.
Mm-hmm. Crescent, what's your moment?
Yeah, my moment is when Darrow jumps down the drill to scan the gas pocket. I just thought it was so visceral and just well written. And like it got my heart racing the first time I was reading it. It's like, oh damn, like this is how this is going to be. And then it was 4 days later I was done the whole trilogy. So it was a good hook.
Yeah. Wait, 4 days for the... I don't know if I remember picking up on that 4 days for the whole trilogy. Wow. I guess...
And that's including work and sleep.
Yeah. I did Red Rising in like 1 day. And then I think Golden Sun took me 2 or 3. And then I had a year to wait, so... Who knows? Morning Star took me definitely less than a week because Pierce was coming to Toronto. So I was like, I have to finish it before I see him. But how about you? Chester, how quickly did you read it?
Looking right now on my Goodreads because I want to know. I don't remember. Let me check.
These apps, they're handy for that.
Glad I even logged it. Sometimes I forget to. Okay, so I actually read it in 2020. I thought it was 2021. It was 2020. First time I read it, October 29th to November 12th. So it took me a little bit.
Okay.
But because I had to work and things like that. It was just for the first one.
Okay.
Like 13 days.
Yeah.
Me a little bit.
Yeah, that's good.
I think I was wanting to enjoy it too. A good book when you sit with it.
And that's I'm finding with being now in the den that I think I speed read these every time. Like I know the basics, I know all the plot points, but then when I'm talking to people and they're like pulling up these intricate details, I'm like, I might read these too fast. Like I'm not pulling it all up together. So that's I really like because we're now all reading it and I have to be like, oh, is that a thing? That's a thing? Okay.
And there's just so much substance there, too, that every time you reread, it might be a little different. You'll catch up on some things you missed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
I did I think what hooked me, too, before we move on, was, the brutality of the language and the writing style. Like, right away, Darrow describes, they have to, pee in their suits, stuff like that. I don't know. I like the language like that, pretty stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
Not peeing in suits, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like they say, we could be fitted with a catheter, but we choose the stink. It's like, ooh.
No, thank you. I would not. This is why I would not make a good Helldiver. I could make the stupid decisions of a Helldiver. I do that sometimes. Like when I'm sailing, I am the person that they're like, hey, you need to go jump as high as you can and hit the sail as hard as you can. And if I accidentally fall off the boat, it'll be okay. But I could not deal with the heat, the stink. Oh.
That one's for Hydro.
For those listening and not watching, we're licking bottles again. I could deal with the adrenaline rush, but not the mess that comes with it.
Fair.
You mean you don't want to do calculus while riding a 90-meter drill?
I'm
possibly shitting yourself.
No, see, it's the shitting myself part. That part I don't want. The calculus part, if I was good at math until you had to be, and then I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So I could do the calculus part. It's the shitting myself. It is the pissing I don't want that. I want the rest of it.
Skipper is not choosing the stink. Okay. All right.
No stink, but I'll take the stupid decisions that could get me killed. I would do that portion of the job. I don't know.
Yeah.
Are you saying, Crescent, that you would take the stink? That you're okay with?
I'll just take it all. I work in the trades. I get dirty every single day.
Oh, that's true.
That's not unusual for me. I work on dairy farms all the time.
All right. I don't know.
So it's not my own poop, but
I feel like your own poop is almost better. Is that a weird thing to...
Yeah.
definitely better than yeah.
Yeah. But also cow poop is way less gross.
Yeah. I
It's
feel like this
mostly
is
just
going to
grass.
go on a bizarre
Yeah,
tangent.
off we go.
What are
What are we doing there? Oh, how to recover from that one? I don't know.
We just don't. I guess that's the end of the episode. Sorry.
That's it. We're leaving it there.
And on that note.
And on that
yeah.
note, well, what's our other option? So what is the Webery? Crescent, this is a question for you. Like, what do they do?
Tell me.
Well, so they've got carved, like, basically spider worms.
Okay.
And they produce silk, like a worm, but I think just on a bigger scale. And then they harvest that for use in, I don't know if it's clothing as well, but definitely for bandages. Yeah. That.
I feel like I could do that job too. That seems like an easy job. I'm okay with the weird spider worm. Basically, I could be a red, I think. I have the hair color, so I'm almost there.
Yeah, I don't know what I would do. I don't know. I don't know if I want to mess with worms and spider worms. No.
Yeah, you get like, do you want the spider worms or do you want the pit vipers? Because that's the other thing, is the Helldivers are dealing with the pit vipers.
Yep.
Like, is there a pit
All around.
viper wrangler? I'm getting too off topic now. Kick me from chat. I'm off topic.
No, you're supposed to be the police.
We know I'm bad at that. It's fine. Well, on that
The
note...
relationship of pit viper to reds. There you go. Fits.
Well, yeah, we're still talking the reds. I personally would be, I think, either a red, just because of my culture being Irish and the hair. Like, I'm just, I don't know, stereotypically set on it. But a blue is, like, at heart because of the navigation and all of that. Chester, what do you feel like you would be?
Violet is the creative, like, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Creating things. That would be me. I like the arts. I like writing, video making, things like that. I feel like that's where I would fit, maybe.
Yeah. Crescent.
Yeah. I am a mix of orange and green. I think it's like, obviously, working in the trades. I am a refrigeration mechanic. So a lot of troubleshooting and fixing. And then in my spare time, I am all tech, all the things.
All the things.
That's my split. Yeah.
Yeah, all the things. Yeah. All right, what other questions we got? Do you have any questions for us? Is there anything that you wanted to bring up?
Yeah. I was thinking about this earlier because I was going back and annotating. The relationship, I guess, between Gamma and Arrows. What is theirs? I'm blanking.
Lambda.
Lambda, yeah. So, like, them being kind of pitted against each other for the laurel is what we're introduced to right off the bat as well. And then they don't get the laurel. And always wins. What's y'all's take on seeing the Reds and people against each other?
Yeah, I am fascinated with that. It's such a, like, way of controlling. Like, it's such a good... You can't have them work too well together because then they'll uprise. Though I have a whole thing on what are they going to uprise against if they think that nothing else is on Earth or on Mars. But, like, it's such a control system of depending on how the week goes. So we know that Gamma almost always gets the laurel. We don't know if it's consistent, so maybe there is weeks where they're like, oh, we should give it to somebody else just to, like, boost in a manner. So I find it very fascinating on like that use of control, and I would love to know more of like we had a discussion and then Crescent brought up the numbers about breeding of do they marry into each other or are you strict to your like group. Crescent brought it up that you need 50 breeding pairs, so they don't need to, but in theory, like, is there any ever cross? Like, what does that relationship look like? But yeah, I find it fascinating of kind of that use of control that the golds can use. Crescent.
I was like,
Yeah,
Crescent,
so-
yeah.
I was waiting to see if anybody else had anything to add. So yeah, like Skipper's saying, it's actually even a lower number than that. It's 50 breeding individuals
Oh, so not pairs.
are required, yeah, to avoid the negative effects of inbreeding. And then 500 breeding individuals to basically be able to adapt to changing climate and all that sort of stuff. So 50 to survive, 500 to adapt.
Wow.
And but yeah, the division of the reds I think is huge for the golds. Like they're so much about family, but they've managed to split this huge family and make them not want to cooperate, like to the point of killing one another. It's the ultimate way to quash rebellion. Like, you know, if nobody wants to cooperate, nothing's ever going to happen. And like, there's 24 clans per mine. So like, no matter how many people you've got, if you're not going to join up, there's never going to be anything.
Yeah. Yeah, the division, well, I think division as a whole is a fascinating, like, even, so you get within the mine, and then obviously there's different mines, but they don't really ever, but then when he gets to the city and goes to the surface, like, you get the highs and low red, and even the division between them of, like, when, and we're allowed to talk about it because it's at the end of the chapter, or the end of the segment, is like they have to dye Darrow's hair and put in contacts and I think do something to his sigils so that he looks like
they doctor them to be a different shade.
Yeah, so that he looks like a high red, and even that alone of like you have the big color system and then within that to a point of, you know, the highs and the low red. Like even that is fascinating of that minuscule micromanagement, if you will, like the subcategories of it all. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Darrow even reflects on it, like saying something like, I hate the gammas even though it's society or something like that. Like they know that they're all on the same kind of level, but they still fall into it and still compete against each other and like make or tease each other about it, or even like more than tease because they're actually angry about it. But
yeah.
Well, and like I think the biggest thing obviously is Gamma always winning the laurel, and then they don't share any of that. They just hoard it, right? Like,
Which
just like they've been given all this wealth, but they're not willing to help. So, you know.
Thoughts and opinions on whether or not the elders know it's rigged. Do they know? Like, because we go into the Laurel Tide and all the youngins are super excited if we think we won it. And the elders are like basically doing a like calm down. Do we think they know it's rigged, or Are they just kind of over it?
I'll let Chester go first here.
Okay. Yeah, in their, well, I would say in their long lives, but the elders are like, what, 35?
Yeah.
But to them, they have had to learn something, I think, at least. And then, even looking at it too, it's like the elders and Eo, because Eo wasn't happy when Darrow was like so cheesy about it. It's like, okay, kind of like placating him, like, okay,
Yeah.
calm down.
It's
So-
okay, honey. Pat on the
More
head.
people know. Yeah. More people know than I think what you first pick up on when you read it at first and what we think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For me, I think that they don't necessarily know like the grand scheme of how rigged it is, but like they've lived, 35 years where it's just always gamma, 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 gamma. So I feel like to a point they know, but they maybe don't know why.
Yeah. Yeah, like you've got. Well, do we know how often they award the laurel?
It says every quarter.
Okay, so
'cause
every
the end of chapter
3 months, depending on what a.
3, I think, or chapter 4, they talk about how Mew and Kai, they didn't dally, they died. Let me see if I can find it here.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the end of chapter 3. Perhaps next quarter, Mew and Kai, you will dally less. And then it says they lost a dozen men in a gas explosion, like the one Uncle Nerl feared. They did not dally, they died. So that's a quarter. Every quarter they do the laurel.
Yeah, so every 3 months. I think Mars months are pretty close to Earth, so every 3 months. I mean, if you are Uncle Nerl and you've been working for 22 years, you're gonna figure it out that like this math does not check out. Like
yeah. There's no way that Gamma has been top earner for 88 straight quarters.
Yeah. Like yeah.
I think it's interesting too that they don't like put up a fight. They lose over and over when the math is right there. The math is mathin', and they're still like, well, I'm mad, but let's go dance and drink.
Yeah.
What else are we gonna do?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, in my thought on that, because someone brought it up yesterday when we were doing our kind of live sit-in, was like, if you don't think or know that anything's out there, what are you going to rebel against? Like, let's say they overthrow the Greys. They know a couple golds are out there. If you think you're alone on Mars, if you overthrow and rebel, where's your food coming from? Where is, like, they're so controlled in that manner that, like, there's no point in rebelling because where's our next meal coming from? Because it's not as if they're going to have the spaceships to go.
Mm-hmm.
And like
That's
they
a good
don't
point.
have, like they're not growing their own food in the mine either.
No.
Like they're basically being given it. It's like,
Yeah.
if we're not given food, we're not eating.
Yeah. So.
It's gonna get them more food. It might even hurt them even more than anything.
So I'll say to the listeners out there that I did sit in chat yesterday in Howlers Den for 7 hours to listen to people's opinions on these chapters. So if you join Howlers Den, you can do the same. Kind of once a week I'll be doing that. So my notes are hilariously like just what people were saying versus the actual thing. So I have things like, some of these I can't say because they got into spoiler territory that they were not supposed to do. But Nerl is head of Sneaky Legion. I'll just leave it at that. I did ask the Swill question, and then Crescent jumped on and gave the Swill answer. People wanted a book of colors so we could get kind of the behind the scenes of what makes up like the height differences of the reds, of the golds, because that's an ongoing thing of, we know that Mustang, well, we know Severo's really, I can't talk about Severo and Mustang. Okay, well, Darrow is very short as a red. So what does that look like compared to the golds that he sees later? But yeah, what does your annotations look like there?
Yeah, mine are mostly like things Darrow says that seem profound to me. Just kind of basic things. But I don't know if we touched upon it, but I think, what do y'all think about Uncle Nerl and Eo? Because there's a part where, so Uncle Nerl sits down at Yuletide? No. And they're like getting the laurel thing. And
Yep.
it says, we don't share words, though he has a kind one for Eo and she for him. So, I don't know. Do y'all think they communicated? Do you think Uncle Nerl ever shared anything with Eo?
I know there's like, there's definitely people that think that she knows more about Sons of Ares, and I can see it, because that's personally the only reason, like, I relate, and it's only recently, that I always thought I was connected most to a character in Golden Sun, but it's only when we're doing this reread do I realize how closely it's actually, I see myself in Eo. And I think the thing I get angriest with her is that I can't understand the reaction of singing the song. Like, I would never get to that point of I'm gonna kill myself for the cause. But if I knew there was a bigger cause, if I knew that whatever I did would set a reaction, I could see myself doing it. So I can see it that if Nerl somehow got to Eo and said, like, there's a bigger thing out there, like, how did she find the vent? We don't necessarily know. So I think there definitely, for me to like Eo, there needs to be a bigger thing. And that's just solely based on, because of that one action, I can't quite get behind unless she has bigger reasoning. And so I hope they are connected, and I hope there is that connection. I don't know. It's a hard one because we don't see that. I would love to have the Eo backstory. I would love to have that, because then I feel like I would be 100% behind her, but without knowing why she sang the song and made those moves, I question everything she does. But yeah, I don't know. Crescent's got the book out.
Looking for something.
Crescent's looking up an exact quote. I bet you anything.
Well, just when you said we don't know exactly how they found the vent. And Eo guides me to a wall and pulls back a thick curtain of webbing, revealing a rusted metal duct. Ventilation, she says. Mortar on the walls gave way to reveal it about a week ago. An old tube, too. So...
Okay, and then she just decided to crawl up it?
Exactly. Like...
Why are you just crawling up?
Why did it do it now? Like, did somebody break it? Or did it just crumble with age?
Like, I've been in a bunch of abandoned places and never have I gone, oh, the ventilation shaft. That's what I'm going to crawl into. Unless there was a reason to crawl into the ventilation shaft.
Okay, so this just in, Skipper is not Tom Cruise.
No. I'm too big. I'm like, I've got almost 6 inches on him. But yeah. Like, I would never just crawl into the ventilation. Well, I guess if you're in a mine, that's all you've got to go. That's their version of the abandoned amusement park. But Yeah, it's just too convenient that it's like, oh, she just decided to crawl into a ventilation shaft? Like, suspicious.
Yeah. I think somebody
Yeah, it's
too
like-
brought up. What?
Sorry. Yeah, it's like, where is this gonna go? To a giant fan.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to the surface, right? Because the surface is being terraformed.
Yeah, you're not
So
supposed
it's
to be
just
able
going to
to.
a big fan. Where is
Yeah.
it? Like, what's so?
What did you think she
Yeah,
was gonna
there's
find?
Yeah.
exactly.
I think somebody brought up too in the den about the time period between when they're in the like locked up. It's 3 days.
Yeah, that was
Not a lot of
Salem.
us caught on to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
But what
completely went over my head that there was 3 days that are missing from the book.
I don't think I ever noticed that either. But who's to say that Eo didn't find out everything or more, and then that made her decide to sing the song? Like, I don't know. I feel like I can just get behind that. Because why 3 days? Like, why even include that?
Yeah.
You know? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That could be specifically symbolism, right? Like
Oh.
the Messiah,
Yeah,
right?
I was gonna say the biblical.
Yeah, the biblical parallel.
Yeah, but either way, yeah, that was Salem who brought it up, who is very pro that Neryl visited or someone got to Eo to tell her, basically, not necessarily tell her to sing the song, but tell her that, like, there's something bigger out there. Yeah. Yeah, and again, it's so funny because the first 4 times I would say that I read Red Rising, and that would have all been between 2015 to 2018. I read them 4 times. I did not like Eo. And I don't know if that's a self-reflection of she's similar to me, but not enough that I could fully reflect, or she's too similar that I'm like, I don't like people who are similar to myself. Who knows? But it's this time rereading that I finally got behind Eo, that I was like, oh, I like you. Like, I really appreciate you. But the one thing that I'm like, we're very similar, and I don't understand why you sang the song without knowing the consequences. Like, she knows she's going to sing the song and die. She doesn't know whether or not that's going to set the whole story in motion. She could have just created heartbreak for her whole family, and, it's done and over with. And that's the part that I struggle with the most. So if we knew her motives, I could 100% get behind her. And if the motive is just like, meh, she felt like it, it's like, well, then no, I'm out. Like, I'm out. I'm dipping. Yeah.
Yeah, like I thought that it would be really interesting to have a novella, specifically from Eo's point of view, of even just from the beginning of the book to when she dies. Like, obviously, if it's if there's more to it than just what's there, obviously from the beginning of that, but I think that would add so much.
Totally.
Which is something we lose with having a single narrator, right? Like, you don't get that outside view.
Yeah. Well, and how much do we trust Darrow? Right? Like, I trusted him fully until people started pointing out all of, like, his narcissism and everything, and I'm like, oh yeah, he does kind of think he's the best thing ever.
I like Darrow. I also kind of think he's the best thing ever, so.
So does Crescent.
Yeah. So does that mean Darrow is your favorite character?
Y'all asked this in the last episode, and I was like, I wonder if they're gonna ask me that. So this is great.
Yep.
This is great. Yeah, so Darrow's my favorite. He's one of my all-time favorite characters, and then Severo, but
Fan favorite.
y'all don't really like Severo.
We like Severo. He's just not our
yeah,
favorite.
we don't dislike Severo. Let's not get that twisted.
I'm still waiting for us to be canceled because everyone's like, they don't like Severo. And it's like, no!
You heard it here first. They hate Severo.
Yeah.
I love him. I don't get it either, guys.
Bye. It was great having
I
2 episodes.
Yeah. We almost made it, guys.
I like Darrow. He's probably definitely my favorite. And then Severo. Top 2.
Nice. Yeah. Darrow's great. Like, he's good. I just feel like I never connect who the narrator is because I'm like, can you tell me more about that person? It's almost a case of like, I know too much about you. So, I don't know. Darrow's great, but he's not my favorite. Severo's also not my favorite. I'm sorry. I go with the like, Mustang's not my favorite. I go with the like back catalog that I'm like, I picked a random person out of the abyss.
Oh, who's y'all's favorite?
Mine's Victra, which we can't talk about.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
That's spoiler.
Yeah.
Come back at Golden Sun.
Yeah, and mine's Darrow.
Okay. Yeah. I like all the characters, like all of them. Like it's just such a good series. Like it's just I love them all.
Yeah, like it's hard to find. It's hard to find a character that you are kind of middling on. It's either one way or the other. You're either really for or really against.
I don't know. We're gonna see next episode gets Cassius, and I'm really in the middle on that one.
Kind of in the middle with Cassius too, I think.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's not spoiler.
I kind of like him though. Kind of like him more than I think about it.
Yeah, he's a hard one. Hold on, I'm trying to pull up our little. You can spoil a little bit.
You're allowed to spoil just a little bit.
Yeah, so that's Cassius is we're in the middle. Yeah, that's next episode, and we are bringing on one person who is very pro. Well, one is pretty pro, and one is very anti. Like, I won't reveal yet because we only
be a spicy episode.
We only have confirmation right now of the auntie, who is Dram, and she is the most anti-Cassius, and we're hoping that... Oh, hold on. I do have confirmation that Hydro is in, so the two of them will go at it of Cassius. And I am in the middle. Crescent, your opinion?
I'm fairly pro-Cassius.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, it should be that's next episode. If anyone listening ever wants to be on an episode, either message us through Instagram or join the Howlers Den, because at the moment what we're doing is just going, who has opinions on that character? And then we pull them in, which works really well. So, information about Howlers Den is always in our links and bios, descriptions, everything like that.
Show notes.
Yeah.
For quick steps.
Yes, Quick Steps wants our show notes. So join the den. We are doing the read-along. That's what this coincides with. This was weeks 1 to 11. So next week is 12 to 22. And Hurricane, I told her that she could have the special commercial of the week, if you will. So this is why it's the benefit of the read-along.
I think that's what I find so interesting about being able to do this read through is the first time I read through it, I was telling Skipper and Crescent, I flew through it. So I missed a lot of those details.
Same.
And being able to go back through and really pick apart the books is really awesome because I'm catching all those details that I missed the first time around.
So if you want to catch those details, and my point was, I like that all the different opinions that everybody brings to the table that I wouldn't necessarily see Eo and I honestly hated Eo coming into this, and then everyone in the den's convinced me that I love her. So it's definitely changing. Oh. Yeah. Are you enjoying the read along, Chester? Having everyone?
This is my 5th reread, and the other 4 times were just by myself. Like I've never had a group like the Howlers did to talk to. Like everybody loves the book so much. We're like literally crazy fans, so it's fun. It's fun to just read what everybody's saying. There's so many different takes. There's so many different ways that people have perspectives on the books. Which is like one of the magical things about reading in general. Everybody takes something different from the same words. So yeah, I'm loving it.
Yeah.
To reread. And then once we get through, I'm gonna get to Dark Age. So
are you gonna try and do Dark Age ahead of us, or are you gonna do Dark Age with us?
I wanna read it ahead for some reason. I wanna have it all by myself, and then I don't think I'll reread it again, but I'll know what we're talking about.
That's
so I can read it. I'm terrified of the Dark Age thread. I can't. I'm scared somebody's going to forget to put the little spoiler thing, so...
No licking. Stay out of there. No licking any of the
spoilers. Don't even go in there until after you're done.
They're talking it's chess today, and today I was like, you gotta go to the Dark Age, if not the Lightbringer thread, which is the, like, really stay out of there.
Yeah, I haven't even opened them, so it bothers me because it's like lit up, like because there's notifications.
You can mute that. So bad. You can mute that. I can show you how.
I need to learn to please, because it bothers me. I'm always like, I click. I'll just close my eyes.
Crescent, how are you feeling? Are you actually reading along, or are you just because you've read them so many times?
So I started, I just re-listened to chapters 1 through 20 last Friday, because my coworker and I were driving 4 hours each way out and back that day, and I made him listen to it. And then I just started again yesterday at 1x speed, because I usually listen at 1.5.
Ooh.
But I got stuck with The Apprentice all day, so I don't like him enough to share Red Rising yet.
Wow.
So I had the radio on, and he won't appreciate it.
Oh.
He's a young kid and not really a reader. So what's the point?
Fair.
Didn't earn it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I got through. I think the first 2 chapters yesterday, and then I picked up my annotation copy today.
That's it. We're all buying copies just to write in them, like.
Yeah. Thanks, Pierce.
We are making. I never point properly. I've got my hard copies behind me. I have signed paperbacks in the other room, other than Dark Age, which I have to get signed. But then I still had to pick up a 3rd edition, 4th edition, 5th. I have too many because I have special editions of them all. So this is my 5th copy of Red Rising, so I could actually write in it. Yeah.
This is my second hard copy.
Oh, you talked at the same time. Chester, what was that?
Oh. Okay, Skipper, you won't write in your signed one, and then Crescent. Are you writing in your hardcover?
No, so I only have paperbacks of everything other than Dark Age. I just bought. Actually, I'm only in possession now of this copy of Red Rising and the copy I picked up today of Golden Sun, because the rest are all out with other people. So that was the biggest reason I needed to go pick up one. But I also wanted one that was going to stay unmarked, and one that would be written in.
Yeah. Which one, if you meet Pierce, are you going to get him to sign?
I think the unmarked one.
Because some people,
I can write in a book, but if it's a book that Pierce is writing in, I don't think anybody else should write in it.
Oh,
even if
because he appreciates when people have written in him.
Yeah,
I was gonna say,
maybe I'll bring him. Yeah. I mean, as many as I could get signed, yeah.
Oh, he's
And then
good. You can
don't
bring
go
him.
through
He
it,
is the
though.
type of person who's like,
Just bring the whole stack.
yeah, yeah. I have done that for
I guess
friends
it's
for
not like
like,
his.
he doesn't care. He'll sign them all. Pierce during signings is amazing that he will spend as much time as needed with you. I have been with him as he's yelled at people of like, no, I am still talking to them. I was going to say on the note of marking up books, but my Iron Gold is my favorite of my signings, and I've got the Scotch on it right now, and I was like, I'm scared to put the Scotch on it, but also I feel like he would appreciate if it suddenly got, that's the Lagavulin. I feel like he would appreciate if it was suddenly marked up, but, because this is the one that he wrote that I was an OG Howler, so that's my biggest flex is I've got the OG Howler there. So, but yeah, because I mean, to take it back to the read along, I've been 8 years in this fandom, and this is the first time. I mean, we would read alongside each other when the new one came out, but you didn't want to spoil, so it was you finished the book and then messaged of like, "Are you done?" And then you would have the conversation. So this, like, every few chapters, it's like, oh, we're, like, going in depth about this, which is fantastic. Because normally it's like, okay, I'm done Iron Gold. You haven't caught up. Oh, I'll just sit in my thoughts. I'll sit there. And then, like, Dark Age was a big one of, like, I think I was done.
Their fault.
Yeah, and you just sat there waiting for someone to be like, I'm now done Dark Age. And you're like, oh, thank God, like, I can talk. And it's only been a week since the book came out, but you're like, I can't process. Like, yeah.
I want to meet him so bad.
Yeah, me too.
You're Texas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Texas.
he normally adds
Hey,
Texas
I gotta
to
say,
the
you
tour
don't sound like it.
No!
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Not even a little bit.
I don't have the super Texas accent.
No.
I mean, I say y'all, but that's it.
Yeah.
So do I, though.
Oh, really? Is that like an everywhere thing?
I don't say y'all.
It's not a nowhere thing. Like, it's
Just a thing.
I
just a
live
thing.
in almost the Texas of Canada, so
Don't
Not
say that.
quite the
You're
Texas
not
of Canada,
Alberta.
but-
You're not Alberta.
no, it's not quite, but I'm Texas adjacent.
Yes. Yes. You're like the... No, I don't even know. But, yeah, you are Texas adjacent in Canada. Rather than I'm like the New York of Canada. Like,
I hope I mean, they haven't announced a Lightbringer tour, but I'm really
No.
hoping.
yeah. I could
Joel
make
did
some...
talk about doing
Yeah, we're going to get some
Howler
Oklahoma.
Con.
Yeah. I think we're going to get some Tulsa. LA and Seattle is always on the list. New York is always on the list. Texas is typically on the list because that's where he went to high school. The middle of the country is always up for the debate. Toronto these days is always on the list, which I should know, even though every time he like announces the US tour and then I freak out and book a flight to somewhere or a road trip to somewhere in the US, and then later it's like, oh, and I've now missed the Toronto signing. Okay. He did Calgary last time, which is out near Crescent, so hopefully he does that one again so that Crescent can see.
If he comes within any reasonable distance, I will be trying to go.
There's a couple authors I would fly meet, and Pierce would be one of them for sure.
Yeah. At this
once,
moment,
once I have my passport, that will be significantly more reasonable.
yeah. I don't think I've ever flown for Pierce. Okay, so I've driven for Pierce to both Chicago and Washington, D.C. Chicago, we did Chicago and then drove to Toronto, so I saw him in back-to-back signings. Well, New York for him was in the middle, but he had 2 days apart, and we were there. This is me and Noelle, who lives in Chicago, and then I drove out to Washington, D.C. to see him there. So I've never technically flown for him, but I went out to Phoenix Comic-Con once in the hopes he would go. And me and a bunch of Howlers went, and then it was like the 1 year he didn't go. So we were all there, and he was not there. And I feel like that's going to be Emerald City Comic Con this year, is a whole bunch of us are going and like being like, Pierce, you always show up. Come on, Pierce. And we'll see whether or not he comes out. But yeah, I've seen him 4 times, and now there's a cat behind me. But yeah,
I'd say it was a possibility.
Yeah. So I've seen him 4 times. Yeah, I did warn Crescent. I was like, there might be a cat. But yeah, we shall see.
Also, I had a question for you, Chester. Skipper and I were talking about how many people we have gotten into the series. How many people have you managed to pull into the fandom?
So I used to work at a bookstore. So every time anybody would come in and ask for an adult fantasy and adult sci-fi, I'd be like, "Okay, Red Rising." If we didn't have a copy, I would be like, "Give me your phone. Let's order it right now. Like, you can get the ebook, whatever." So quite a few people to the bookstore, and then online, because I talk about it on my channel a lot on YouTube. Like, after I read it and when I do my rereads, I bring it up so annoyingly often. Like, every video.
Yeah.
And I did my reread of Red Rising. And have you read Red Rising? And you should read Red Rising. Like, so much. I've had people, like, comment, like, I read Red Rising and I love it, blah, blah. So, quite a bit. I feel like I'm doing the Lord's work, pushing the Red Rising agenda out. And then one of my, in real life, best friends, she likes to read, and I gave it to her. And we're always, like, I give her something, she gives it 2 stars, 5 stars. She gives me something, I don't like it, she liked it. So with Red Rising, I was almost like, don't even read it, or don't even tell me if you don't like it. But she loved it. So, and she's after Golden Sun, but she doesn't want to pick up Morning Star because of the end of Golden Sun. So
how I don't I understand.
One of my friend's partner is the same way.
I understand that you've gone through trauma, but I need to like complete the cycle, if you will. Like, I need the follow-up. I don't understand.
It's so frustrating. I'm like, please, like, just finish the trilogy at least. Just finish those. Wanted to read Morningstar so bad. She's bought it. She has it. So this year I'm going to get her to read it. But I loved it, so at least we agreed on that. Yeah. But I don't see how you can't love it. So
right? I have one friend of the many people I've recommended who said he didn't like it, and it was because he didn't like Darrow. That he thought he was too, like... Which we know that he's an unreliable narrator. He pumps himself up, and he's like, yeah, he was too much like, yeah, I'm the best. And it's like, well, yeah, like, that's his personality. That's what you have to kind of go with, almost. But I told him he has to try it again. This is the person who, I don't know if you've seen, that I jumped in the ocean with. And I was like, if I'm going to jump in the Atlantic Ocean with you in January, you're rereading Red Rising. Like, that's the deal here.
This is the deal.
Yeah.
Give it another go.
Yeah. So you talked about... So you are a booktuber. Do you want to give us your socials and everything so everyone can follow you?
Sure. My channel name is Andrew Reads, and YouTube has now, you can just use the @ so it's just @Andrew Reads. Anybody wants to check it out? I post a lot, only talk about books, don't shut up about Red Rising, so if you're watching this, probably something you would like.
Yeah, it sounds like my kind of channel.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah, so.
Awesome. Yeah, so go give her a follow. If you found us through whoever knows what means, we are on Instagram as Fade to Obsidian, and then from there you'll be able to find the Howlers Den as well. And yeah, I think that's pretty much our episode for today.
Yeah, I think we did pretty well with staying on our target.
I had a few almost slip-ups there of the Victra Cassius is next week. It is. We'll let it slide. We're so close.
You can spoil just a little bit.
Spoil just a little bit, in the words of Hurricane.
We'll get to several.
Severo is next round.
Severo's the following week.
Listen, there is so much for next round. It's a big one. So,
I want to say thank you to both of y'all, because y'all are, the masterminds behind this. Hard work. Y'all are incredible.
That's actually Skipper. I'm just showing up here.
No,
Okay,
you
Skipper.
posted on Instagram today. I'm very proud of you.
Yeah. There we go.
It's
One of them.
great to be y'all's first guest, and it's an honor.
Yeah,
Fun.
well, and thank you for being, thrown into this, as we still don't really know what we're doing. So we appreciate that you accepted to be the first guest. That's awesome.
Oh,
Yeah, thank you so much. I don't think we were expecting that nobody was going to want to join or anything, but we really didn't expect people to just like jump right into it.
Right in.
So it's been fantastic. Thank you so much.
No.
I saw EO, and I was like, I volunteer.
Yes. And the moment I saw your name, I was like, that's the perfect person. Thank you. Awesome. All right. Well,
Love it.
thank you, everybody. And enjoy your week. I don't know how to sign off. Like and subscribe. See y'all next week.
Tell your friends.
What's happening? This is where we need to figure things out. All right. See you next week.